definitely know going forward for the next time I make this, I need to reduce how much gochugaru I use, because in the recipe it calls for only a 4th cup, but I'm like, ooh, I should go even smaller because this was very, very spicy. And I don't think the videos, when you see it, do it justice of how red it turned out.
Hello and welcome to the Krazecast, a podcast run by the fans for the fans that brings it close to the action. My name is Roxy, and today I'm joined by my fellow host, Jay.
Hi! To keep up with all of our content, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at KrazMag, and YouTube, The Kraze. And if you're watching this on YouTube, before we begin, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch our next episode, and hit that bell for notifications whenever we upload new videos. My goodness. And so we're doing something different today for the podcast today. So I will let Roxy introduce it, and then we can go into it further.
So today we switched it up a little bit. Both of us got a copy of Maangchi. Is that how you say her name? Maangchi?
I think so. I think Maangchi. I think she goes by Maangchi in her YouTube channel. But yeah, we both have it right here for those who are listening on.
You can see audio. All of the marks that we have. This is all the things that I'm going to try to make.
I know. I'm using a Pokemon card as one of them.
Amazing. Yeah, so we decided to each pick 2 dishes from this book to make on our own, and then come back to talk about it. So
yeah, definitely just wanting to challenge ourselves a little bit more when it comes to cooking. I don't know about you, Roxy. Do you like cooking?
You know,
I have had an interest in it.
I used to hate it when I was younger. Like in college one time I tried to make Alfredo and the sauce broke, and I was like, I can never do this again. Like I failed so badly that I will never cook again in my life. So but honestly, like since I moved out and I live by myself now, I have to cook all of my own meals. And since seeing it as more of like a experiment type thing, as opposed to, you know, having to follow something as a like bit by bit to perfect it, I've had a lot more fun. So instead of it being like math, it's like writing for me. So it's like, here are the guidelines, figure it out.
Right. I think for me, like I've always liked cooking, but I come from a realm, I don't know if your parents do this to you, but like when you start cooking, they'll just hover and like they're like, you're doing it wrong. And so that's very discouraging at times, because it's just like, I want to learn how to cook and do it right, but also that's part of the cooking experience, right? You have to make mistakes in order for you to perfect your dish of whatever you're cooking. So I like cooking, but it's just like when they hover, or like I always have my mom in the back of my head. She's like, you're cutting it wrong. You're and I'm just like, I just want to cook. So this particular one, I mean, I've always seen her YouTube videos. I don't know about you. So I was just like, well, she has a cookbook. Why not? Let's just do this. And so, yeah, I really liked enjoying cooking. I think I enjoy cooking a little bit more better than baking, because baking requires such specific measurements. And if you fuck something up in a recipe for a baking recipe, your whole thing is particularly screwed. But with cooking, okay, it needs a little bit more salt, it needs a little bit more seasoning, or this could use just a little bit more water or something like that. You could always add. The only part is reducing is kind of hard. Once you get it to, like, once you over salt it, you're done.
Exactly.
You can so,
which is why you start under. But like, even still, having started to cook, there are a few times that I have like fucked things up royally. Like one time I bought gnocchi from the store, and it was like, boil it for 1 minute and it's done. I boiled it for 1 minute and 5 seconds, and it turned into mashed potatoes.
Well, you know what, there's when we talk about one of the recipes, my recipe, so I will say I did not have one, or there was one that I wasn't successful in, but I know what to do. And maybe like after this recording, I'll do a post redemption and just add it in, and it's like I did it again. So yeah, it's just all about trial and error. So yeah, the first one I did, and then you'll see the vlog footage for this scattered throughout. First of all, wait, before you even get into it, how was getting your ingredients?
Okay, so I have a thing where I am like terrified of going to a new grocery store by myself. There is no rational explanation for this. Like I've never had a traumatic event happen, but I just like my anxiety shoots through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's an H Mart not very far from me. It's like I don't want to say distance. It's not far. So I was like, you know what? We're gonna beat this anxiety. We're gonna go.
Yeah.
So once I got to this new H Mart, like I don't like not knowing the layout of my grocery stores. I want to know where I'm going and what I'm doing.
Right.
But it was small enough, like it was one of the smaller ones, so I was able to find everything pretty easily, and I was having a pretty good time actually like being able to find stuff, because like the usual grocery store I go to has like a very small like Asian section. So sometimes there's gochujang or stuff like that, but just to see like a wall of the things I need, I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is so easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have any difficulties finding anything in H Mart that you had to go into like a different grocery store, or were you able to find everything at H Mart?
No, I got everything I needed at H Mart, and it really helped to be able to read Hangul.
Yeah.
So it's like I know, like for example, the glass noodles are like dangmyeon. I think that's how you say it. But I never would have found them if I didn't know how that was spelled. So I was like, oh, thank Jesus, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
So like if you do Korean cooking, you probably just want to be familiar with the like the Korean title of stuff. The same was for gochugaru. That was weirdly difficult to find if you did not know how gochugaru is spelled.
Right. I mean, you can only get like, if you're lucky, if it has the picture on the label itself too, and that's how you kind of can reduce to it. I mean, I think grocery stores now, or Korean grocery stores, they're getting better, at least including the romanized version of the Korean on the labels now, since they're importing here into the US and other places. So yeah, I think that was like a good thing. Like, but yeah, like Rock said, I think you should also just familiarize with yourself with how the Hangul looks like. You don't have to necessarily read it. Just remember what it looks like, or take your pictures, because I didn't bring this cookbook with me. I took pictures of the recipe, and then I just looked at my phone to make sure. I was like, okay, this is what I had. But I couldn't find everything in my particular H Mart store when I went. So I had to like outsource just a little bit by running to like a nearby supermarket, and which was surprising that I couldn't find certain stuff, but it's fine. Anyways, the first dish that I did was sundubu jjigae with meat, or for the English version, it is spicy soft tofu stew. And I really like sundubu jjigae. Like whenever I go out to restaurants and I'm feeling like having something soupy, I will always get this. And I'm not the biggest tofu person, but in this I'll have. And so I made it, and lesson learned, I need to reduce how much gochugaru I use, because I nerfed my taste buds yesterday when I was eating. It tasted good.
But it's like good. It's more intense than you think. Like I put cayenne pepper in like most of the things I make, and still with the gochugaru, I was like, oh, so
yeah, like you know that feeling like after several bites, your mouth will start like throbbing. Yeah, that was me yesterday. I mean, it tasted so good, and I really liked it, but I definitely know going forward, for the next time I make this, I need to reduce how much gochugaru I use, because in the recipe it calls for only a 1/4 cup, but I'm like, ooh, I should go even smaller, because this was very, very spicy, and I don't think the videos, when you see it, do it justice of how red it turned out. When you watch the footage later, it's just like, oh, this is red. And in the recipe, it could call for different types of meat. I decided to go with pork with mine. Meat is intimidating to like buy sometimes, because you're like, am I, picking the right type of meat? I mean, easy enough is going chicken, but I'm like, I don't want to do chicken with this. I feel like it's better, even more savory, if you have beef or pork. So I decided to go with pork on this one. And I actually enjoyed making this. Like, it was a tough challenge because I never really cook with meat in general before. So getting to learn how to like properly, aside from chicken, properly cut meat now. And like, thankfully she has this recipe up on her YouTube channel too, because I wanted to see how she did it aside from reading it in the cookbook. So I liked it. I had fun while I was doing it. I will definitely do it again, but like tone back some of the gochugaru, because I'm just like, whoa, this is it's not very spicy, but after a while it's going to burn, and I'm not gonna like having to go to the bathroom later after this. So yeah, that is my first dish. And yeah, I think you can do this dish. It's fairly easy. The only thing I think might be intimidating would probably be the fish sauce, because people don't necessarily like fish sauce and the smell. But I think another substitute would be probably soy sauce for that, I think. But yeah, I think you could do this, Roxy. I think you'll like this one. And
tofu
the great
scares
thing,
me. I've never made tofu before.
So the thing is that she recommended buying store-bought soft tofu. And so like I literally cut the tofu and just plopped it in. And then you just break it up inside the pot itself. So I don't think I'd ever try making tofu on my own until I'm more of an experienced cook. But thank gosh for markets like H Mart for selling it already made, because it's just like, I can't even imagine. I think me and Roxy were talking prior to us recording about this process. The one thing that is intimidating for both me and Roxy is creating stock on our own. And so definitely did not attempt to try to make chicken stock or anchovy stock. This one
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No.
Because in the recipe book, she does have recipes for making your own stock. But I know for a fact I am far too squeamish to buy anchovies and like gut them to make a stock. So I was like, that
even if it's dried.
Even if it's dried, like there are some things I can't do. I just recently got okay with like chicken breast, like touching uncooked chicken breast.
Yeah,
that's how much I was like about meat. So
yeah,
like,
yeah,
can't do stock.
Yeah,
but the dish that I made, the first one was the raboki, with a few modifications, because I am picky about my vegetables, and I don't like fish cakes, so I did not put fish cakes. Yeah, I don't.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm not a big fan of seafood in general, and like when I've tried fish cakes, I'm like, this is too fishy.
Is it the actual taste or the texture? Because I know some people don't like it for the texture.
Mostly taste, I would say, but also didn't like the texture very much. So instead, I just used more rice cakes. I didn't use fish cakes, but I also didn't put the eggs in because I have an allergy to eggs. So no eggs.
Bummer.
Yeah, it's the worst.
That's fine. Oh man.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So like not only am I allergic to wheat and gluten, I'm also allergic to eggs. So like baking is impossible for me.
That sucks. I'm sorry.
Stupid. My body's stupid. Doctor confirmed it. But yeah, so I just made the tteokbokki with the ramen at the very end. The thing about that is like, when you get the gochujang in like the tub, it is so difficult to stir that shit.
Yeah.
So you put that with sugar and then the gochugaru, and it's like, oh my God, how do I even get this mixed up? Right? It's so thick. I was like, there's no way this is breaking up when I put it in the stock. It did. but it was very difficult to get that all together. But I would say like this is probably one of the easiest dishes I've ever made like on the fly, because all you do is like soak the rice cakes for 10 minutes, as long as they're not frozen. I just bought like the refrigerated pack or whatever. Soak the rice cakes, make the gochujang sauce, put the stock in, put it on a boil, throw everything together and let it simmer for a certain amount of time. I do think there was too much liquid because I didn't have fish cakes. So like there was less to take it up. So I had to on the fly kind of be like, okay, we're going to put a top on this and let it thicken for a little bit. Because otherwise it'd be watery as hell. But that turned out like really spicy also because of the gochugaru. It was a lot, but it was still really good. I mean, I have a ton left over too. There's so much left over.
Right. I definitely overestimated how much I cooked. I was like, ooh, this was supposed to serve 2.
I don't know, because like some like 8 ounces of noodles is like a lot.
I'm like, this is a lot of like ingredients. I don't think it's necessarily like I just can't get my timing right. How about you? Like when you like it would call like the recipe would call for like, oh, do it for 5 to 7 minutes. I'm like, no, I have it down here. Longer. Right?
I use that as like a guide, not as an absolute, right? So it's like it says like 10 minutes to simmer. After 10 minutes, I open it up and my sauce is watery as hell. I'm like, absolutely not. This is going on longer. Like there's some intuition to it too. Like if the timing isn't right, keep going. Like don't use that as an absolute.
Yeah. So what would you do differently for the next time you try making this?
Definitely reduce the amount of stock I used, because like the recipe called for 5 cups of it. I only had 4 because like the stock that I bought was a small like bottle, and even still it was like way too much. So I think being more intuitive about that, or I didn't consider ahead of time that all of that liquid was to contain everything that I didn't put in. So.
Right. Would you add anything else aside from just tteokbokki and ramen?
Yeah, because I think that gets a little bland quickly. So maybe just like aromatics, like maybe onions, stuff like that.
Ooh, you know what? Sausage, maybe?
Or like ham. Or like some sort of meat. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, maybe you should try doing that, because I was just like, I think that's the cool thing about her cookbook too. It's just like, oh, if you want a vegetarian option or you want a seafood option, she has the recipe. It's the same recipe, but you're like, okay, here's how to do it a little bit differently. I think for mine, I think I would add in a little bit more veg. I really like bok choy, so I would probably just add a little bit of bok choy for myself into the sundubu jjigae recipe. I think also maybe adding ramen also might just to soak it up, because like you, I definitely, the recipe called for 2 cups of stock, but I used the whole entire container and I put in way more veg, like onions and cucumber, because I don't really like mushrooms. So I substituted mushrooms for Korean cucumbers instead. And I'm like, I should have cut this up smaller because my portions are now huge. And so you compensate by adding more of the stock. And I'm just like, yeah, I need to watch how much I'm cutting into some of these things, or else it's going to be a disaster. And now you're going to have way more than you anticipate. And so I'm like, I have to get through this spicy soup for the rest of the week. And I'm like, uh-oh.
I know. I'm like, because like the second dish I made, you have to eat within like 3 days of it.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about it when we get to that one. But it's like, I have so much Korean food. I'm going to hate it by the end of the week. Like,
right? It's just like, yeah, you know what? It's going to be like, I'm going to be sick and tired of this, like in like 2-3 days, but we don't waste food as much as possible. We don't waste food. No.
Too expensive to throw all that away. Too
expensive. Like really, like people don't like, that's the downside of cooking. Ingredients over time get so expensive. So
especially meat, dude. Especially.
Yes. Yes, meat is so expensive right now that
Dude,
it's just like,
my dog does not eat dog food because she's diabetic. She eats people
mhm,
food. It's chicken, like chicken breast and barley.
yeah,
The price of chicken breast right now is
it's expensive. This inflation that is happening right now is killer. So like if you're going to try and attempt some of these, I would try to opt for the easier ones first right now off this cookbook because certain ingredients are expensive. There's an like a braised beef one that's in here. I want to try it so bad, but beef is so expensive right now that I'm like, that's a later time.
yeah, honestly,
So
I think pork belly is the best option because I bought some
mhm.
of that and it was like $8. I was like, all right, we're good.
Yeah, the pork, it called for tenderloin, but I got sirloin instead, which was fine. I had to pick out. I was just like, some of these cuts are a bit expensive. You know what? $3. I'll just take that one.
Yeah,
Because I'm just
tenderloin
like,
too, especially is usually expensive to begin with. So
yeah. So I was just like, oh, I'm gonna take this cheapest one, but it's still enough meat for me to get by in this recipe. So yeah. But I think cheaper alternatives by adding like sausage or spam, I think would be helpful for those who are wanting to do it. I will try, the next time thinking about it, I'm gonna try doing a ham cheese sundubujigae just to see how that's going to work out. So yeah, that was fun. That was super fun. The first dish, I can't wait to see your footage of when you cook this because I want to see your process. And just when the episode goes live, we'll see. But my next dish is actually the failure. So it wouldn't be an experience if one of us at least didn't mess up, and I definitely messed up in this one. For this particular dish, um it is the rice cake and grilled cheese skewers.
ooh, I
So
have that one marked.
yeah, so it looks like this. It's more of like a street food particular kind of dish. So I messed up greatly. I messed up big time in terms of as I was making this dish, and you'll see it in the footage too, because I did not end up eating it because I failed so badly. So if I think later before this episode comes out, I think I do want to redeem myself and try to make it again just because like I said earlier in the episode, I couldn't find everything within H Mart. One thing I could not find was cheese. Proper cheese. Um
Interesting. I didn't even look because I have cheese at home. So like,
yeah, like some of the other things, like I have this at home, so like I don't have to worry about this. And there's just, I didn't want to necessarily be like, this recipe called for sweetened condensed milk, and I didn't want to do like something super sweet, even though I think it would taste great. um that's the only thing I didn't include. But so I had to go to another store and I bought mozzarella, but I bought the wrong one. I in in the cookbook it says mozzarella sticks, and I was just like, how are you, like, so your first thought is like string cheese or like actual mozzarella? And this is where I should have watched the video she created first, because I didn't know about it until as I was cooking this dish. I bought the wrong type of mozzarella, where I bought the block, and I should have just gotten the string cheese because they didn't have it at the H Mart. They had like other cheese, like the shredded cheese, but that's not helpful. That's not what I need for this one. And like other blocks of cheese, but not mozzarella, surprisingly. The other thing I didn't know, and I'm glad I caught it on camera, or I got part of it on camera, where I didn't know I was supposed to blanch the rice cakes either. And it's a good thing I went back to the video, because at first I was just like, I did soak my rice cakes prior just to soften them up, but they were still too hard, that when I tried putting the skewer in, it would just break in half. And then I went into and it doesn't say that in the cookbook, where you should blanch the rice cakes just a little bit. And in her video, she said blanch about a minute. I blanched it within a minute and it just turned into putty at the end of it. So there's my lesson of like, okay, this has to be blanched even quicker than I'm used to. So by the end of it, sticky fingers, and I'm putting the cheese into the skewers. And as soon as I popped it into the pan to start frying it, the cheese just melted everywhere and it didn't fry. And so it makes me wonder, okay, so I guess the string cheese, it holds its shape better. So that's why I think I have to redeem myself in terms of making this one and put that footage later in, because now I know what I did wrong. And here is what I'm going to do better next time. And so, yeah, this was a fail. So I couldn't eat it, but this is what cooking is. You make mistakes and you learn from it. And so, yes, talking about food right now is making me really hungry, and it's like 8:00 in the morning. So I definitely am gonna eat after this. But yeah, that's where I failed. But at least I got that footage for you, and don't make the same mistakes I did.
Honestly, dude, rice cakes can be difficult.
Yeah.
They are like deceptively difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
Because like I've made a different like snack dish with rice cakes where you boil them for like 4 minutes to make sure that they're all soft. But like if you mess it up, they just like if you leave them alone for too long, they stick to everything. So like I've drained them once and left them there for 5 minutes, and I was like pulling them off my strainer. I was like, Jesus. So
yeah,
rice cakes are great, but they're also like they can be very difficult.
They're super finicky. So like if you're not watching this, I have nails. This was the hardest thing to like take them out under my nails, that I'm like, did I get everything?
And then it's like when you wash your hands, it doesn't come off.
Yeah, and you're like, come on. And so like definitely don't make the mistakes I did. And I think it would be just great to reference her YouTube videos, because most of these recipes that are in her cookbooks, she has videos for. Look at her corresponding video to what her recipe is, because without me, if I didn't look at her video for it, I'd probably be like, the fuck am I doing wrong? How am I supposed to do this? And it probably would have been an even bigger failure in this particular episode. And I'm like, I did it wrong. I don't know how to do this. How do I fix it? So I want to definitely redeem myself, and I'll put that footage in as soon as I can. And then also she bought in the video, you would think like, because we buy the prepackaged tteokbokki, the rice cakes, you would think any of them would fit. She had some really thick ones, and I'm like, this doesn't look like my tteokbokki that you could buy at the grocery store. And she said you can either make it or buy store-bought, which it doesn't matter. But in the picture, they look freaking huge. Like they look like the thicker diameter ones. So I was just like, is my tteokbokki that I bought not the right one? But I mean, I guess that's another thing to experiment with. But now I have a lot of tteokbokki, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, because I mean, it's not like I'm going to skewer like 8 of them. That's a lot of carbs and cheese, first of all.
But I do have a recipe I can send you for fun rice cake snacks.
Yeah. And then what do you think, Roxy? I'll suggest this. It's not in her cookbook, but I know how to make carbonara tteokbokki.
Yes.
I can do that and add this in later. So I might just make carbonara tteokbokki with the leftovers that I have. And that recipe is not in her cookbook, but fairly easy. Just don't fuck up the heavy cream.
Yeah, it's always the heavy cream, bro. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned making Alfredo. Can't fuck with that heavy cream.
Yeah. So everything else is pretty easy. And you know what? As a bonus, I'll include that later on in this footage, because I've been craving carbonara tteokbokki. So even though I had a failure, there's something I could always redeem myself with, and maybe have a bonus video because I feel bad for not having 2 full dishes, but it's okay. It's okay. So what was your other dish that you tried making?
I did not epic fail. I had like a tiny fail in my second dish. I tried making japchae, which was like super intimidating to me at first because I have never fucked with glass noodles. I don't like, I was terrified of messing those up. So this one takes a little longer because those are supposed to soak for 40 minutes in cold water. So like, just set that aside. This is where I took away a bunch of vegetables because like you, I don't like mushrooms. So I didn't put any mushrooms in. Don't really care that much for carrots. Trying to remember.
Good for the eyes.
It's fine. I mean, I could have. I just like I didn't. That's like a vegetable I'll eat, but like I don't seek out. And then I don't like spinach. So this recipe called for spinach as well. And I was like, absolutely not. So I did a more basic form where I really just use like garlic and onions along with the noodles. So that also I feel like may have contributed to, so like a part of my noodles did burn on the skillet. And I think it's because there wasn't as much surface area in there. So and it water. Came in contact. Yeah, it came in contact.
Probably because I think with spinach and carrots, it still soaks up the water, and then once you're frying it, it'll come out and it'll release. So I think it called for a little bit more moisture, probably. Maybe
most likely. Okay. It didn't ruin like my entire dish wasn't burnt. It was just like a little section because I caught it soon enough. I opened it up. I was like, oh fuck, like we're burning. Move it.
Like, oh, what happened?
Yeah. So that was an interesting process too, because there's also like a side of meat that goes with it. I chose pork belly. And the sauce that the pork belly that you make it smells exactly like a Korean barbecue joint. I was like, I just unlocked something. I can make this at my house now.
Yeah.
So good. And it's like soy sauce, brown sugar, and like sesame oil are like the 3 big things in all of the sauce. Soy sauce is not gluten-free. But there is tamari sauce, which tastes exactly the same. So that's what I used.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was gluten-free. It wasn't gluten-free. Oh, interesting. You learn something new every day.
Yep. That's one of the big ones that gets people with celiac or just like me who just has an intolerance. So just use that, and you cook the meat ahead of time, get that all done. And then put it's like I use the same skillet that I did for the tteokbokki. But basically the noodles soak, you drain them, make everything else, get everything prepped, throw it all together, and then put a top on for like 10 minutes. And I think it turned out well, all things considered, because I didn't I ate it. I had it for dinner.
Yeah.
So it was not as hard as I thought it was going to be. There is a lot of prep that goes into it. And like, I'm still a failure at cutting vegetables. So like, especially garlic, like mincing my own garlic is a pain in the ass.
Like, oh yeah. When you see how I did it, I'm like,
you're just like,
like professional chefs, we should preface, we're not professionals. We're just at home people, just regular people trying to cut. And I mean, remember, for those who are cooking or doesn't know, when you cut like this, not like that. Okay. You cut against the grain like that. When you're like, if you're holding an onion, you hold it like that and cutting it. When you're doing the garlic, use your fingertips, but be careful because it's so small. But like cutting vegetables like that, very intimidating, because I'm always scared that I'm going to cut my fingers off. So yeah, always like this. Okay.
I've definitely stabbed myself before, not enough to bleed, but where it was like, shit.
Like, ooh. When I had long nails, there's one time I was cutting and I had my fingers out and I nearly cut my nail off. And I was just like, oh, that would have been a very big disaster if that was my actual finger.
Yeah.
Thank God they're acrylic fake nails. So I was just like, oh, be careful. So when you are handling this, for all of our listeners, please practice safety. Don't hurt yourself, because I mean, also don't put your pan, like don't be so close to your pan, especially if you're gonna be frying things.
Oh yeah,
Because
then I'll come out
burns
and get you.
happen.
Oh yeah, it happens
Yeah.
to me all the time. But yeah, I think the only issue I sort of had is like what I noticed when I was making this is like she didn't specify where the heat should be when you put the noodles in. Like if it's
In the
supposed to be on
cookbook?
high. Yeah. So I'm also worried I put it too high and that's why it was also burning. So like I had to adjust on the fly with that as well.
Right.
So I wasn't like you and smart. I didn't go look at the videos that she did of cooking. I was just like, we're gonna wing it.
Yeah.
Out.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the I think yeah, those are just some lessons learned going forward. But I mean, overall, like I know like this talking portion may seem a little bit more short, but you have vlog footage. So
yes. And I gotta say, I found pineapple soju at H Mart when I went there.
Oh yes.
So when I was making dinner, I was drinking that.
Did you happen to see the one with it's the more tropical with mango and pineapple in it? Or no, the mango one?
I was just like
pretty good.
I was like really excited that they had soju at H Mart because sometimes they don't carry it. And I was like, there were 3 peach ones left. I was like, that's mine. Like mine. But that was like the first thing I put in my cart. Everyone's like, she's an alcoholic. Walking around in H Mart with just soju in my car.
See, like when I was walking, you could get the standard bottles, and then I started noticing there's the even bigger bottles, and I'm like, ooh, this is dangerous because they started making it in the other flavors, and I'm like, this is lethal. Yeah, this is lethal to have. But I think that's the cool thing about like going to like places like H Mart or any Asian grocery store that does have Korean ingredients. You're like the things that we were like our favorite snacks are there, things you want to try are always going to be there, and so like you're always finding something new. I know Roxy was trying to struggle buying a certain piece of ramen.
Yeah I bought the is it carbonara or rosé ramen? It's creamy? Like the fire noodles.
Is it creamy carbonara on the packaging?
It's the pink package, the pink fire noodle package.
Okay, because I bought one because I was just like, since Roxy's talking about it. See, and here's the thing, is like I don't necessarily do spicy, but I was just like, I wasn't mad with the original carbonara one. I mean, it still hurt, but I was like, let me try this creamy one. See how they're bulldog
noodles, so it's gonna be a time.
So I was just like, ooh, I better make sure I don't eat, or like I take it easy when I eat this. But yes, I think that's a cool thing about just going to these grocery stores, and you're like, now I know where to get stuff and I'm familiar with these things. So, I mean, overall, this particular experience was a lot, but I'm glad that we did it because it was definitely a challenge to like learn how to cook other things. So in the future, what are like we showed off how we had like some things marked off. What are some of the dishes you want to try next?
I know I put the army stew on there as one of them. I wanted to try to make songpyeon as well. I'm very scared of doing that. That was one I marked off. Let's see. Some of the meat dishes.
Yeah.
As well. There's a lot of seafood.
The braised beef short ribs, I want to try so bad. Galbijim, give me galbijim so bad, because there's a galbijim restaurant here that I'm just like, I'm craving it, but it's expensive because it's like if you want to buy it, it's like $60.
Yeah.
For serving for 2.
Yeah.
So I'm like, japchae is another one I marked off because I was just like, okay, I want to see how Roxy did it, and then learn from what Roxy did so I can see how I can do it with for myself. I will say japchae is very similar to, have you ever had Filipino like noodles like pancit? I would recommend, and I know in your area you might be able to find some just because there's a lot of Filipinos within your general vicinity. So japchae is very similar to pancit, where the noodles are they're not glass noodles per se, but cooking the noodles are very temperamental. So my mom's been asking, like, can you make it? Because that's her favorite thing whenever she goes to Korean restaurants. So I want to attempt that. Since Roxy tried it, I was like, I want to try that too next. But I want to try her, like, her drinks, like making her cocktails and her
Oh
drinks.
yeah, the like the watermelon soju cocktail.
Yeah.
There's also yakju on there, which I wanted to try to make.
Yeah. So I was just like, I want to try making that. And then she had this persimmon punch slush. And I'm like, ooh, that looks good. I would do shaved ice if doing the shaved ice wasn't difficult.
Yeah, it's that seemed too difficult. There's a lot. I feel like most of my markings are either like the meat dishes or like the like sweets or like street food, because she does have a recipe for hotak as well.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a very wintry fall type of dish to do. But like, I mean, I think H Mart you could buy the pre-made hotak, but like there's something gratifying about making it yourself. It's just dough. Dough is intimidating when it comes to that. But yeah, I'm glad we did this. I'm proud of us. We did it, and so we know what to do going forward.
So, and I didn't set my kitchen on fire, so.
Right. Honestly, nothing really fully burned. Okay. And I mean, we were able to eat it. That's what matters. I mean, not to say that we're terrible cooks, but
I'm still novice level. I'm very beginner, so.
Yeah, like I still like the usual dishes that I make myself. Like I know how to make a kimchi fried rice. Like even then you still kind of burn it just a little bit, but also scorched rice is very good. So I mean, you win some, you lose some. And yeah, I'm just really glad that we did this. And maybe we should we try challenging some of our craze members to try doing this and ask
maybe
them,
we should.
like we should probably, like, hey, any of the craze members who are listening or watching this right now, let us know if you want to join in on an episode, because I feel like we have to revisit, like, do more cooking stuff, because we don't get to talk about food on this podcast much. And so would love to do more food things and just experiment more. So if anybody is down, or even our listeners or our mutual friends who are wanting to come hop on an episode, the invitation is open. Please let us know, and we definitely love to make something. But I think if we bring on more people, I think we should only do one recipe instead of two. But because it's me and Moxie, we decided to do two. So yeah, I'm getting hungry. How about you?
Yeah, I'm ready to go have some lunch. We also, in the food column that is not currently active, but in the past has been, we have put up some of Maangchi's recipes on there. She's probably one of like the biggest like Korean food people that you'll find on the internet. So if you're interested in finding more, you can also go to her website. I'm sure she has a bunch of this stuff on there as well.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't have to necessarily pick up this particular cookbook. I mean, for this cookbook, I think we spent less than $20, right?
It was on sale. It was like $17.
Yeah, like her cookbook is fairly thick, and it is, decently priced, because look how it's pretty thick. But if you don't have the means or the money to buy it, the great thing is it's free on YouTube. It is free on her website, and she walks you. You get to hear her, and she gets to walk you through her process. There's just a lot of pause involved. We're writing down the measurements that she uses throughout the particular recipe. So there's definitely resources out there available for you. And just because we use Maangchi's cookbook for this episode doesn't mean you have to go with her particular cookbook. There are other people out there in the world who have other recipes and everything like that. So we definitely encourage you who are watching and listening to try, especially if you're into Korean culture and their food and want to try something new. Definitely do this. I think because me and Roxy just really like Korean food, like we're just like, yeah, sure. But yeah, if you're down to try something, highly recommend. Go do it. This is fun.
And with that, I think we're good to head out and go eat some of the food we made.
I know, because I'm hungry.
For sure.
Maybe having spicy soup early in the morning might not be the greatest idea though.
Don't know until you try it. So
true, but do I want to regret it later in the bathroom?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good point.
Just like, do I want to regret this? Maybe we'll see. If not, it'll be lunch or dinner later tonight. And yeah, I will redeem myself. I have a challenge for myself. So at least you know that this episode is not going to be super long, or not. It is going to be long enough for you to do this. Because yeah. Thanks for listening to this week's episode, guys.
Yep. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Krazemag and leave us a rating or review. We're available on all platforms. So this has been the Krazecast, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.